This is the Conservative Crusader.
Welcome back. This is the Conservative Crusader here on the Red Future Radio Network. I don't know if y'all have been following the young Republican situation with the National Federation and how they instituted a new chairman, did a bunch of random drama stuff. They're a really irrelevant organization at this point nationally, but the state chapters and the local chapters are doing a great job. And joining us to talk about this is actually the vice chair of events for the Washington, D.C. Young Republicans. We know a lot of them. They come to the show. They're great people. Isaac Smith is joining me now. His Twitter is IsaacSmith_DC over on X or Twitter, whatever platform name you want to call it. Isaac, welcome to the program. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing very well. It's very good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you for hopping on with us. So you're involved with the National Federation through your position on the Washington, D.C. board. Can you give a synopsis on what happened at this convention? I'm not sure if you were there or not.
I absolutely was there. I'm proud to say that DC, despite, being a relatively small chapter and deep in the heart of the swamp, was well represented. We sent more people down to the national convention than Idaho or Connecticut and many other states. So we were down there. I was not a delegate. I was not a voting participant, but I was present. And the fact is that we had this big national election. And it was all very confusing. It was all, this big show. But like one of the things is that there wasn't a lot of conversation around the issues that are actually facing voters, that have actually gotten people involved, that have motivated people to join the Young Republicans. Right. People became involved because they're worried about crime. They're worried about immigration. They're worried about abortion. They're worried about the weaponization of their government. They're worried about an increasingly out of touch civil service that seems, more self-serving than, to be a service to the public. And, instead, they bring out speakers like Dan Crenshaw, who said we should leave populism to the left, who said that you shouldn't run for office if you're under the age of 25, for which, by the way, he owes a massive apology to several attendees. We had over 50 attendees at that conference who were under the age of 25 who were elected to public office.
Wow.
We had, I think it's 5 North Dakota state reps under the age of 25.
I've met quite a few of them. They're fantastic people, but they're also they're very kind.
Right. Smart guys, very conservative, very principled, very serious about North Dakota, very serious about being in the legislature. And he just told them that they had no business running, despite the fact that they ran and they won. So I think Dan Crenshaw owes them an apology.
He owes a lot of people an apology. He's a disgrace to this country, and he was one of the main speakers. I know he has a history with them. Also, Kat Kammick.
I'll let you in on a little secret, okay?
All right.
So, the way that it works with speakers at these events is that the speakers actually pay for their slots.
I believe that.
Our headliner was not, like, the biggest speaking slot of the night was not the governor of Texas, which would have made sense, right? We're in Texas, the governor can be there, right? He's got the rank. So why is his slot pushed down in favor of Kari Lake, right? Whose biggest achievement was being the nominee for governor of Arizona. Well, the answer is Kari Lake paid $50,000 to the conference. That's why.
All right. I did not know that. I like Kari. She's a good person. I hope she doesn't run for Senate, though. And I don't know why she was the main speaker. Like the Reagan dinner as well at CPAC. I don't know.
Between you and me, Kari Lake is a little bit like our Stacey Abrams in that she ran for governor, lost, claimed that her loss, and I'm not here to litigate the truth of these claims. I'm merely saying this is the claim, right? That she lost due to fraud. Stacey Abrams claims she lost due to voter suppression. Both of them then went on national tours, became very, very popular within the base of their party, right? Became political celebrities, and both of them were getting a lot of vice presidential speculation. I don't know if you remember, but for a while, people were talking about Stacey Abrams as Joe Biden's running mate.
I do remember. And then
right. And now people are talking about Kari Lake as Donald Trump's running mate.
I don't think most serious people are discussing that. I think Byron Donald to be a better choice. There's a lot of better choices out there.
Personally, I would lean either towards Sarah Huckabee Sanders or maybe Kristi Noem. I'm a little on the fence about Kristi. But I want somebody with some real executive experience. I want somebody with a good name, good name ID. Of course, I was one of the founding members of Reopen America PAC, and as a result, we really like Christie because, unlike DeSantis, she never shut her state down.
All right.
Right, Christie Nome is the gold standard on COVID response.
She's right. She's got a great name ID, and we could have this discussion for hours, but I kind of want to move it back to young Republicans really quickly here. I have a clip from the new national chairman that was voted in by a lot of weird procedure. Let's play this cut here.
Black Lives Matter. Republicans, myself included, have hesitated to say the phrase. Republicans fear the phrase, but we should not.
All right, we're stopping this already. This guy, he's a terrible speaker based on that, by the way. That was a terrible video. But he's a BLM supporter. Why is he considered serious by anyone in the conservative movement, let alone the chairman of the National Young Republican Federation, the only young organization that has any sort of legitimacy in this country?
Yeah, well, so that's the thing. Like the YRs, the big advantage of the YRs compared to like Turning Point or some of the other groups is that we are Republicans, right? And we are officially affiliated with the Republican Party. And that is why I do encourage anybody who is interested in conservative politics, who is, in the age bracket, right, 18 to 40, right? That's a pretty broad bracket, to get involved because it's a very easy way to get a seat at the table. But the fact is you have to understand that chapter leaderships rarely represent their membership because it's kind of a dictatorship of the involved, right? You don't get paid to be the state chair or the national chair of the YRs.
Right.
It's not a salaried position. And so it tends to be dominated by a very narrow demographic of people. One, of course, is people who have the time and the money that they can put all of this effort into being the state chair or to serve on the national board. So, you get a lot of attorneys, you get a lot of realtors, right? Like me, I work as an EMT. I couldn't keep up with that schedule and I wouldn't have the disposable income to do the amount of traveling and such that's expected of you.
Right. And thank you for that work, by the way, besides the point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good way to get to know your neighbors is what I'll say. But the point is that so you have that dynamic. You also have the fact that it's kind of a dictatorship of the involved, that a lot of people just don't really want to, they don't really want to do this sort of work. It is a lot of work. I found that out now that I'm on the board of DC. It is like a part-time job. And so a lot of people are in it because they're careerist, right? It's like, oh, I was the state chair of the Young Republicans. That looks really good. I can get hired in the administration. I can get a government job. I can get a job in the party. And as a result, a lot of them, unfortunately, are very, very terrified of controversy. They're worried that pushback is going to hurt their careers. Right. And the whole reason for being in these positions is to move their careers forward.
I've seen that a lot. I'm involved with the high school Republicans, and there's a lot of people in there that are only in it for the title, only in it for, and not actually worried about youth involvement, not actually worried about youth engagement. Let's move on here a little bit to the straw poll. I'm sure you saw it out there.
I wasn't too pleased.
Thomas Turner's the auditor. If you look at his Twitter subscriptions and who he subscribes to one account, Republicans Against Trump. Now he's in charge of auditing.
For short.
He's in charge. So true. He's in charge of auditing this straw poll that somehow has Ron DeSantis beating Donald Trump by how many points is it? 2 points?
Not even. It's like half a point. It's super, super narrow. And this is what I'll say. And this was my frustration, right? And this is why I started speaking out publicly about this, because that straw poll was released immediately. Me and my DC people, right? The DC delegation, we hop in our group chat and we're like, hey, did you take a straw poll? Did anybody know anything? Okay. So like I said, there were 10 of us down there. None of us heard anything about a straw poll. We checked the schedule. There was nothing on the schedule about a straw poll. So I immediately hopped on the phone, right? And I started calling people around the country. And I spoke to people in Virginia, New Hampshire, Vermont, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Illinois, and Arizona. And not one of them heard anything about a straw poll. Right. And, so I'm like, okay, so it's not just us, right? It's not just that, people think DC is full of weird swamp creatures who are not to be talked to. Okay. This is clearly a big issue. And another thing I would point out and this is another reason why I'm very skeptical, is that there was a guy, his name I think is Ryan Binkley, and he's a no-name candidate for president. He's some Texas pastor, businessman, right? But he's not even being included in the polls.
Right.
But he had bought a table to be at the conference. Now, I don't know if you remember, there's another no-name candidate. His name is Perry Johnson, and he was working the floor at CPAC.
Yep.
Right, and he got third place in the CPAC straw poll.
Right.
Because he was just out there aggressively shaking hands, asking people, to support his candidacy. And straw polls are a great way for minor candidates to get a little bit of notoriety and recognition because you can show up with very little infrastructure, work the room like crazy, and overperform. And
Perry, people voted for him because he's a meme too. He's kind of a funny
guy.
He's
adorable. I love him. I really do. I think Trump Johnson 2024. I think Perry Johnson should be his running mate.
So true.
But anyway, the point is that I guarantee you that if there was a straw poll being promoted, his people who were working that table every hour of every day of that convention, they would have told me about it. Yeah. And they would have said, hey, man, please, even if you're on the fence or, maybe you plan on voting for Trump anyway, but we're just trying to move our candidate forward, because they were selling merchandise for $1.
Wow.
Right. Hats and shirts and stuff for $1 because they were trying to get to that 40,000 donor threshold to make it to the debates.
Right.
So if they were doing those sorts of methods, they would have those minor candidates are the people who would have been pushing the straw poll. They were not pushing the straw poll. And anybody who's dealt with me knows that I'm a pathologically extroverted person. And so I will talk to every single person in a room. And I must have talked to maybe 800 of the 1,000+ attendees at that conference.
Wow.
Not one person asked me who I was voting for in the straw poll.
So it wasn't promoted. It's pretty much fabricated. I saw Gavin Wax put out a tweet from New York where you could vote in the straw poll multiple times.
Oh, I did. I didn't vote into the straw poll until last night.
Yeah. So you think they're going to update the results?
I would love to see the updated results of the straw poll released now that we've been sharing that link on Twitter.
Yeah, Gavin said he can vote multiple times. So, Ryan Binkley might be number one at this point.
Maybe, or Perry Johnson. We got to get that Perry-mentum going.
So true, or Bergamentum even. He's actually on the debate stage, and he's still a no-name candidate.
Right. Well, but the thing is, he's rich. If he could just give me a $20 gift card, I'll write him in the straw poll. So I'll do that for a Cracker Barrel breakfast.
So true. So is there Cracker Barrels in DC? Anyways, moving.
There's one about 45 minutes south.
I did not know that. So moving away from the National Federation, the DC Young Republicans. I know many of the people in the organization, including yourself. You're doing a great job. You're a leading group of young Republicans, at least nationally, and the appearance right up there with the New York Young Republicans. What are the DC YRs doing to save our country from inside of the swamp?
Well, so with us, it's a little strange, right? Because obviously we are in D.C. We have a very transitory population. Sorry. And I think that it's the air quality in this city. The swamp's polluted. But as it is, our job is to normalize being a out and proud Republican conservative patriot in the nation's capital, because a lot of people are scared to be. And everybody talks about, I hate DC, and DC is just, it's full of crooks, it's full of corruption, it's full of sin. And don't get me wrong, that's the case. But the fact is, it's also where the nation's decisions are made. And if we as patriotic Americans advocate the Capitol, if we refuse to be present in the nation's capital, we have voluntarily relinquished our decision-making power. Right? That's why you need to go to Washington. Right. Because that's where the laws are made. That's where the decisions are made. That's where the DOJ is going crazy. Well, where do they hire the people? In Washington. Where do they work? In Washington. And so Washington matters.
Absolutely.
And so what we've done, one is we host our regular meetings. We bring in strong conservative speakers, right? We've brought in Matt Gaetz, we've brought in Raheem Kassam, right? We brought in Marjorie Taylor Greene. We've brought in strong conservative speakers, right? We're actually hosting the Salvadoran ambassador later this month.
Wow.
And she's going to talk about how El Salvador has managed to solve crime with this one simple trick. As it turns out, if you just throw the criminals in jail, they
don't do crime anymore.
Safer. Yeah, exactly. Like it really is one simple trick. And so, we're doing that. And then we've been really stepping up our recruitment. We have more than quadrupled our membership in less than 6 months. When I was elected, when the new board was elected, which I believe was back in March, we were elected from 87 members. And now we are just shy of 300.
Wow. And
the reason for this is because, nobody in DC affiliates with the Young Republicans for their career, right? It's not to your advantage. So the only reason why you would be there is because you're a true believer, right? Because you believe in the mission, you believe in this vision of America, right? That's built on our faith, our history, our heritage, built on families, built on private property, built on self-defense, on local autonomy, right? Constitutional separation of powers, all of these things that we believe in. That you have to be a true believer in that vision.
Right.
And true believers want people who will stand up for them. And they want people who will speak, who will say out loud what they are thinking internally. And so if you want to increase your recruitment in a deep blue area, the solution is not to moderate. The solution is not to be more like the Dems. The solution is to be less like the Dems. Right. Like I said, I live in DC. I live in a rough part of DC. I am proud not to be a Democrat. I am not responsible for what is being done to this city.
Absolutely.
And I am telling them that, it's funny because we were talking about that Black Lives Matter clip, right? The reason why, it's like, I believe that Black Lives Matter. Obviously, Black Lives Matter. Black people are being shot every day in my neighborhood.
Wow.
And BLM was the one who ran the police out.
Yeah, of course. That's all they're there for, and they're not there to actually do anything, and they're right.
Not, and my city councilor, Trayon White, okay, he's a Democrat, black guy, right? He has gone on the record. He has said that crime and violence is so out of control. He has requested the National Guard be brought into Southeast DC to restore order.
Unbelievable.
And I mean, that's to the right of me on law and order issues, right? I don't think we need the National Guard. I think we just need a more aggressive prosecutor and a few more cops.
You'd actually have police to do the job.
Right. Yeah. Police. I mean, it's serious. Seriously, a tank going up and down MLK. What are they actually going to do?
Right. I mean,
right. You're not going to, you're not going to stop a carjacking with a tank. But the point being that, we have an issue with lives that are not mattering. We have an issue with violence and poverty and disease and drugs that is causing people to die before their time. And getting a solution to this is absolutely critical. Now, my solution has been to engage with Congress, because Congress in DC, Congress can act unilateral. Congress can take over the police force. Congress can veto the budget. Congress can do whatever they want, right? This is their own private little fiefdom. It's not like a state where there's some constitutional limits. And so I have been working to educate members of Congress about their role in oversight so that we can try to get some help in here, so we can try to get some of that infrastructure in here, so we can try to get some of these corrupt city officials fired from their jobs and replaced with good, competent people.
And you have that power because you're actually in Washington, in that area.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And thanks to Republicans of Congress, the DC jail has received its first renovation in 30 years.
Wow, that's fantastic. And it might actually, or are they going to use it, the jail, though? That's the question.
Well, no. So a friend of mine, Suzanne Monk, she's been corresponding with numerous inmates in the jail. She's been advocating specifically on behalf of January 6th defendants. But this is a broader issue. This affects the general population of the jail as well, right? But she's pointed out that thanks to congressional intervention, the 23-hour-a-day lockdowns have ended. The paint has been, the walls have been repainted. The place has gotten a deep clean. The air conditioning unit has been serviced and the lawn has been mowed.
Wow.
Which wasn't happening before. And so I would like to personally thank Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, Congressman Matt Gaetz, Congressman Bob Good, Louis Gohmert, and Paul Gosar. Those are the 5 members of Congress that came down and attempted to tour the jail that has started this process of fixing the DC jail.
Yeah, I remember that day watching that live stream, and that was how they kicked them out of the jail. They wouldn't even let them in.
Yeah, and I would, Kat Kamik actually was an asset on this. I wish she would dance to better music, but Kat Kamik, I actually worked with her office, and she was calling around. And, it's funny because she said that the DC Department of Corrections said that they didn't have to talk to her because she was not on the oversight committee. I said, that's funny because I was just talking with the oversight committee and they're not talking to them either. So you call them back. Kat Kamik was actually has been very supportive. Kevin McCarthy, I know a lot of Republicans don't like him, but he's been very good to us here in the district because he led the effort to veto the DC crime bill, which would have made carjacking a misdemeanor.
Wow.
And so, Kevin McCarthy has protected the people of DC from our local politicians. And so, for that, I applaud him.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for your synopsis of why it's important to actually engage in Washington, because people, and I was in with Leadership Institute a couple times in the class, and a lot in the district, and a lot of people that I was in class with were afraid to actually go to the Hill and talk to the representatives and speak their mind. I'm like, that's how you get things done.
Please! I got kicked out of an LCR event because I was asking Joni Ernst what she thought about child transitioning and wouldn't let her off with a non-answer. By the way, Joni Ernst is opposed. You just have to ask her 3 or 4 times, but she is opposed to transitioning 12-year-olds.
Takes a few times.
Well, the problem with Joni Ernst is that she's been a politician for so long that she actually has forgotten that you can give a straight answer if it's a popular one. Right? You can, you're in a room full of Republicans. You can say, you know what, we shouldn't transition the kids, and everybody will cheer. You should do that. Right? Instead, she always starts talking about Senate procedure and basically says, I'm a senator, nothing gets done. Which, she's not wrong, but
it's a good excuse.
It's not very productive.
Very true. We're going to have you on again because I think we could talk for hours. Isaac Smith is joining us, Isaac Smith _DC. Where can our audience learn more about you, engage with yourself and the Washington Young Republicans?
So the main thing is you can, of course, follow me on Twitter, Isaac Smith _DC. You can also follow the Washington DC YRs on Twitter, and keep tabs on our website. We're always hosting events, and if you're ever in Washington, we would like to host you. So we are here for the people of this country when they come to the nation's capital. So you just come on and see us sometime.
That's very cool. I had a couple invites, but my schedule didn't overlap when I was actually in the district. I spent a month there, and somehow I missed every event you guys had.
Good Lord. On. But, are you old enough to drive?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can make it down here. Problem is you're not old enough to drink, and I don't know how you'll fit in around here without that.
So true. I've heard the same about New York. Isaac Smith, thank you for joining me today and giving us that great. It was a great conversation. I really enjoyed talking to you.
All right, absolute pleasure. Thank you.
All right, we'll be back after this here on the Conservative Crusader.
You're listening to the Conservative Crusader.